أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
I have the mic, I have a good crowd, and I have 10 minutes. I think I can raise $100,000. I became known for that. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I was asked to recite with you Surah Al-Fatiha. But as in our tradition, intentions are very important. So I will share with you what intention I would have so that you might share these intentions with me as you're reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha, as I like to translate it, as the opener. Some people translate it as the opening. I like to translate it as the opener. And that makes it very appropriate for our night as we're opening and we're starting the first class of Zaytuna College. Surah Al-Fatiha starts with a phrase that you would hear from Muslims very frequently. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Interestingly, this phrase, in every other surah, in every other chapter of the 114 chapters in the Quran, is extra. It's something that you're recommended to recite. But in Surah Al-Fatiha, it counts as verse number 1. Verse number 1 of chapter number 1 of the Holy Scriptures of the Quran tells you who is the sender of this message. As Allah calls the Quran the message, Al-Kitab. At the time of Arabia, they didn't have books like we have today. They used to write on scrolls, and they used to write messages. A small message used to be called Risala. A heavy message used to be called Kitab. So Allah calls the Quran Kitab, a message, a heavy message. When someone sends message to someone, there has to be the sender, the receiver, and the message itself, the subject. And if you're lucky, you will get a header or a title that will summarize for you the message and what this message is all about. Interestingly, in the Quran, verse number 1 of chapter number 1 tells you who is the sender. Bismillah, in the name of God. Interestingly too, the last verse of the Quran of chapter 114 tells you who is the receiver. Min al-jinnati wan-nas. Who is the human beings and the jinn. And the subject is the chapters themselves, the message, but we were lucky to get a header or to get a title, and that is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. God has chosen of all of His names and qualities, 2 names, the most merciful, the most compassionate, so that you will get an idea what this message is all about in a nutshell. So if you don't have the time to read it, or you don't have the knowledge to translate it, at least you will get what it's all about. And that's compassion and mercy. And that's what makes Surah Al-Fatiha very significant. I will read today Surah Al-Fatiha with the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, will give the wisdom to the faculty, to the members and to the students to understand this message in its entirety. For often, half of the truth is always against the truth. Be able to understand Islam in its entirety, comprehensively, inshaAllah. Surah Al-Fatiha is very unique because it's the only chapter in the Quran that was revealed twice. The very same chapter twice. One time in Mecca and one time in Medina. So it holds in it. It has to be understood within the context of Mecca and within the context of Medina. And as the world has evolved and as things have changed, we're no more living in the Meccan period, no more we are living in the Medina period, but we're living in a combination of both periods with more. So I read Surah Al-Fatiha with the intention that Zaytuna College will be able to grasp and teach the Islam in the context that it lives in. As Islam, as Surah Al-Fatiha was revealed both in Mecca and in Medina, and it has both understandings. I read Surah Al-Fatiha with the intention that as one of its names is Ash-Shafiyah. One time, the companions of the Prophet were traveling, and they stopped by a tribe, and they asked for food, they didn't give them. So they didn't fight them back. So when they saw that they were righteous people and they didn't fight them back, they ran after them and they called them and they said, we noticed that you are good people. We fought you and you didn't fight us back. Our leader is boiling with fever. A scorpion has stunned him. So would any of you have anything to read to heal him? We see that you're good people. So they said, yes, one of them. He went to him, put his hand on his forehead, and recited Surah Al-Fatiha. It describes that he instantly was healed, and he stood up and he started running. So the other companions said to him, we didn't know that you were a good healer. He said, I didn't know that either. I just put my hand on his forehead and I recited the most dear surah to me, which was Surah Al-Fatiha. I hope that I read this in surah with the intention that we will not just always be emotional and fighting back. Because sometimes when you don't fight back, you teach your enemy the biggest lesson that they need to learn, that you're not like them. And I read it, inshallah, so that we are able to have this love in us, not only towards our friends and those that we love, but those that we consider as also our enemies. I read it with the intention that Zaytuna will heal the wounds of the Muslim community, will heal the wounds of the general public too, of the American society, through the education and the knowledge that it will teach to others. One of the names of Al-Fatiha is Al-Wafiyah and Al-Kafiyah, the fulfilling and the sufficient. I pray, inshaAllah, and I read Surah Al-Fatiha with the intention that Zaytuna College will be good enough and will be sufficient and will fulfill its mission that it stood up for. Surah Al-Fatiha is used in different cultures for different reasons. In Sudan, if you ever found and went to a Sudanese funeral, when the people who come to offer their condolences come, they don't go forward and they shake the hand of the person and hug him. No, they walk, then they stop 6 feet apart. And both of them raise their hands and recite Surah Al-Fatiha to the deceased, to bring him life, light, and forgiveness to his grave. I read Surah Al-Fatiha with the intention that Zaytuna will bring life, light, and forgiveness, inshaAllah, to us. In the Palestinian culture, when someone decides to get married, the family of the groom goes to the family of the bride, and they sit down together, and once they officially request for the hand of the bride, and they officially answer with yes, they both raise their hands and read Surah Al-Fatiha, and that's the first step in the process of marriage. So we often refer to people who are engaged as they have read their Fatiha. So I hope that tonight will be a wedding for Zaytuna College, inshallah, and a happy occasion as we will read it, inshallah, so that they will be united with the community and its needs, and they will be united with the truth, inshallah. Finally, in India, In Pakistan and in Afghanistan, they oftenly recite Surah Al-Fatiha for protection. And they read it when they wake up in the morning, when they start riding their car, when they're about to go through a serious task or mission. I read Surah Al-Fatiha with the intention that Allah will protect Zaytuna College from all obstacles and from all enemies, outward and inward, as sometimes we become our own worst enemies. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dad, every time I was about to do something, he used to say, stop. May Allah have mercy on his soul. And he used to say, let's read Surah Al-Fatiha before we do this. So I would say, let's read Surah Al-Fatiha before we do this inauguration, inshallah. I will do it in a way, I know some of you know how to recite it. Some of you don't know how to recite it. So I was given different suggestions as how to do this. I think I will go with that. All of us, we recite it together, inshallah, in one voice. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين